So today I'm reading an excerpt from chapter 25, Not Alone. And yesterday I left off where I have discovered a website and the work of Mary Beth Spitznagel, a PhD, and her study on pet caregiver burden, which was very helpful, and it continues to be helpful for me as I read more of her research and just realize that I'm not alone. But at this point, also, Gidget's bladder infections are starting to increase, and it is feeling stressful. And the frequency of her overnight accidents was also increasing. So most mornings I was waking up to having to clean out her kennel and give her a bath. So as I continue to look at Mary Beth's research, I'm going to pick up now. In the meantime, I tried to lean into the support system I did have, including my women's mastermind circle, which met each month at one of our homes. It was always a treat to meet at Pam's place out in the country, especially when the weather was nice and we could sit in the teepee. I loved her teepee. It was her turn that April, but it was a cold and windy day that we decided to meet in the cozy lower level of her home. When it came my turn to talk, I took a deep breath. Everyone knew I was struggling with the challenges around caring for Gidget, as I'd expressed that in February when I hosted our group. Then again at our meeting in March. It was no surprise to them when I brought the subject up again. I told them that there had been some hopeful developments since the last time I saw them, including the research I'd come across and the talk I had with Joe, as well as my discussion with John. Yet despite all this, I still didn't know what to do. When I was done sharing, Lisa and Monica offered their input. They both said pretty much the same thing. When the time was right, should I choose to euthanize Gidget, I would know. It was the same advice I'd personally given to many others over the years, but it didn't feel true for me. As the room grew quiet, I hugged the large pillow on my lap and stared into space. A few moments later, Pam broke the silence. "Can I ask you something, Barb?" I nodded my head up and down. With the deepest of compassion in her voice, she said, "What do you really want?" The moment she said this, I felt a ball of fire rise up from the lower part of my belly. It traveled through my chest and into my throat where it got stuck. It felt like my throat was burning. As I held tight to the pillow, I somehow mustered the courage to finally say, "I want to let her go." These words seemed to come from somewhere deep within, and once they escaped my lips, I put the pillow to my face and sank into the corner of the sofa, as if trying to make myself small. I felt so much shame and guilt. It was as if I was being swallowed whole. The room was once again silent. It felt like an eternity, but I eventually dropped the pillow away from my face. As I looked around the room, looking at each one of their faces, I could feel their support and love for me. While they understood that this was a decision I had to make on my own, and that there was no easy answer, they'd held this sacred space of honoring what it was I needed to express. As I drove home after our gathering, I felt numb. I knew I needed to be with what had transpired, even though I wasn't sure how exactly to do that. And then as this chapter goes on, I do reach out to Joe again and share with what had happened during the discussion with my women's group. And he just keeps encouraging me to remember the support I have, to be with my feelings and feel everything that I am feeling, even though I am feeling darker and darker inside, and it is getting increasingly difficult to feel the way that I'm feeling. But I just want to give you a little bit of a clue as I continue to share the rest of the chapters with you. When I had finally mustered the courage to say I want to let her go, deep down inside, and this was the self-healing work I needed to do, I needed to let go of this pain that I had carried and this trauma of that vision I had of being touched inappropriately as a child. And it was manifesting in this way with everything I was going through with Gidget. So the next chapter is chapter 26, called The Choice. I'll see you tomorrow.